Hello. Today let's talk about load tester guide to JMeter. Every time we see that the performance engineering tools such as load runner and other legacy tools are being using, and now the industry is moving to a kind of a freeware. So this how we can have the transition from that legacy tools to JMeter? Let's talk about that. So a common question we get from the folks interested in performance engineering and how they can transition from load runner to other legacy tools like a JMeter. Well, definitely we see the benefits, open source, a cross-platform software, and easier integration into evolving trends like agile and continuous integration. And we definitely see that legacy tools have reached to an logical end, but and definitely we need to explore more and understand how to drive into future. So how can performance engineer take his skills and knowledge and practices they have been developed, they have been doing over years, decades, into the next generation? I think it might be helpful to have a handy guide for load testing professional who are new to JMeter. Let's take some of the familiar tasks and ideas from the performance engineering, and put a kind of a light on how to approach these tasks in the next generation tools. So just to make it very logical, so let's talk about commonly we see that. So what basically uh, that typically the performance engineering will include or other tool will have. So basically it will have a kind of recording. We need to have a think time, and we'll touch upon these all points and see how we can help user or other listener to understand how we have to migrate, or other how we have to transit from the older phase to the new phase of the performance engineering. So let's start with creating scripts. How can we leverage these JMeter platform, the kind of recording and logical flow and understanding the virtual users, etc., etc. So among the main tasks of the performance engineer faces is creating the right test scripts. These may be a simple kind of a get request, or maybe a complex post or a session based interaction with lots of post data and other headers and cookies, or a series of calls to a REST API, or sending sending the JSON, going back forth, and all those things. A common approach is to have a kind of a testing software record key use cases and business processes. Say for example, typical retail business, what it will have a login, search for the item, browse the results, whatever you have browsing you just add into the cart, begin checkout, and provide the shipping details and the making the payment. So this is what it basically includes, placing the order. So in legacy tools, how these interactions often done by some kind of a recording and a scripting software. For example, virtual user generator in case of a load runner, sorry. The recorder is kind of a backed right into the tool of the GUI centric way, and pushing the kind of just a typical red record button and setting a couple of options, and yes, you just go on with that and your recorded script would be ready. So in case of a JMeter, recording involves kind of a few more steps included. Basically first you need to set up the HTTP test script recorder in the workbench section of the script. This is basically kind of a proxy that will interact and intercept the record all your browser activity. It runs on a port you select and a details window, and then you edit your system or browser settings to use the proxy server and port. It places the resulting captured activity into the recording controller. That becomes the basic test scripts. While it's not kind of a quite as a click and go as a legacy recorders, but it's pretty easy to kind of understand the steps. All the results instead of a code is clear and code free test script. So basically this is takes an edge in terms of using the legacy tools like a load runner and a JMeter. And let's talk about assertion. When we talk about assertion, sometimes a server will return a status code as 200, indicating successful response to a web request, even though there is an underlying application error, but and the content of the page is incorrect, but still you are going to get the 200 and okay. So how to handle such kind of scenarios? So we definitely need to have a assertion. So in case of a load runner, we typically have to write a functions in a C programming language. It's like web underscore reg find and find out what is the assertion and all those things. But in case of a JMeter, it's pretty straightforward. You can use the available assertions and you can find out what is happening in case of what exactly you're expecting. Is it working, behaving the way we want it? And in case of think time, so another important consideration in driving realistic load traffic to application under test is using the concurrent users and a think time. So whenever you are developing the scripts, you need to understand that we are not developing kind of a robot who can just click, but obviously you need to understand to perform an application scenario or end user. Even he is a human being and he needs a little bit some time. Even say he reads something is loaded and he needs to choose the option, and there is definitely a think time of a kind of a thing definitely there. So similarly, the way load runner has the think time, so JMeter has a kind of a timers. So there are multiple timers available. Those timers we can utilize it the way we want our test plan says. So it's definitely it's a beautiful concept, and that's something we could use from the JMeter. Then next we can talk about parameters and correlation. At most performance engineers know the unique and dynamic session handling specific values, because the most modern web apps will rely on the session, and you need to those session will be very dynamic and you need to handle those things. When script don't work but an app appears to be functioning properly, it's almost always one of these dynamic values root cause for that. So how to handle that? So for that you need to have a parameters and correlation. So legacy tools will use handling these challenges, usually called a correlation concept. And in case of JMeter, there is a automatic correlation scanning tool. JMeter is actually a little bit easier than other legacy tools like load runner. So you need to just identify them, and with each request that you capture in the JMeter recording, the request parameters are presented clearly in the text box, and that's something you can take and you understand. Say auth token is with some alphanumeric characters, and you can identify them. So it's a pretty easier than what other legacy systems offer, or legacy tools like load runner offers. So there are certain regular expression. That's something you can extract the things whatever you want, and you can put them in a okay, this is what you wanted. So authentication token, yeah, you got the authentication token and you want to utilize it, you can use it. This kind of a very user friendliness is available in the JMeter. And logic and the flow control, yes, the logic and flow control is very much important whenever you are developing the scripts. Once you develop the scripts, you needs to be pretty clear how you want to run it, how you logically want to run the script. So you want to use your global variables in a global, how you want to do that. You can prioritize the, okay, you want to run this first, you want to run this second. Typically you have to use, I mean, that is very pretty much easier in JMeter comparing to the other tools like load runner, because this is GUI driven. And the last, that's something we would like to touch upon on virtual users. So virtual users are very much important. Basically you want to generate a load. Whenever you want to generate a load, you would like to create your virtual users and put them in a virtual users on the bank them on a server or in a load balancer, wherever you want. And the similar kind of a concept we are having in the JMeter, we call a thread group. So thread group has a in JMeter there are so many plugins available for the thread group. So you can straight away use, you want to run the JMeter with these many threads, these many concurrent users for this much of time. So this is really very flexible and easier to use from JMeter point of view. So I hope this information helps, and kind of see you again. Thank you.